Hi, welcome back to the McGolf shop, and today we are going to do irons. It's the next section in the green to tee series, and we get to pull a few iron heads. So we're going to talk about the concept or what you need to know about the irons, and then show you how to pull a steel shaft. So let's get started. Okay, welcome back. We're going to talk about irons, their characteristics, and then we're going to pull a shaft. And we're going to do it all at the same time. So whenever we do steel and we're working with flame, got to put on the gloves. The other thing that you might need is a good knife. Now I don't mean like a pen knife or a folding knife, but I mean a solid knife. Alright, you can get these at, this is a Hyde, H-Y-D-E. H-Y-D-E. I don't know if you can see that in there, but it's right here. So anyway, good solid knife. You get those, I got mine from the Golf Works. I'm sure that they still sell them. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this Titleist club apart and put a new shaft in it because it has got a big old crease here in the grip. What we're going to do is we're going to heat up the ferrule. We're going to remove it. All right, a lot of guys like saving the ferrule. It's a 35-cent part. It is not worth your time to save it unless it's special, like something that is brand spanking new or something that you just can't get. But you can order this from most aftermarket places. It costs you maybe $1. And if I don't see it being worth your time, because you're going to put a brand new shaft in it, put a brand new ferrule on it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to apply some heat. We're going to apply some heat with it like this. Look at that. Business is business here, isn't it? How about that? We're going to apply some heat, and then we're going to scrape the ferrule down. Then we're going to heat the hosel in 15 to 20 second increments. And we're going to try and twist it off. Now, the only reason why we twist it off is because it's a steel shaft and we're not going to worry about this shaft. Even if you're going to replace it for some reason, you can twist it. Now if it was graphite, we just put it in the puller. If this doesn't want to work or it's uncooperative, then I'll also put it into the puller. Okay, so we'll get started with that. So what do you need to know about an iron? Well, there's basically two categories of irons. They've got what's called muscle back, and there is cavity back. Muscle back or blades have been around since the very beginning, and that was because basically they were easy to make and they really didn't have the technology for the cavity back. The cavity backs came along, basically you can count them just right around the ping era. And what they do is cavity backs are basically called perimeter weighting, and they call it perimeter weighting because you get all the weight that goes around the outside and it creates a cavity in the back, hence cavity back. Cavity back is a little more forgiving on off-center shots. For those of you that have ever done that or hit blades and you get off-center, you can feel it all the way into your eye teeth. Not very good. In addition, it also costs you about 15 yards, and nobody likes that either. So here come the cavity backs. Now there's all shapes and sizes, to the point now they have what you can call a pocket cavity, where the bottom end, they've moved so much weight to the bottom end in order for it to fly a little higher, and they create a little pocket because it moves the center of gravity back. And I'll show you that here as soon as I get done with this. And that's the whole idea of the reason why you see lofts of irons becoming so much stronger is a lot of these manufacturers have figured out how to move the center of gravity down and back, and it creates a high launch angle. Well, you don't want to get it too high, otherwise it doesn't do anything. Look at that. Alright. So when it doesn't do anything, it gets too high, you don't want to do that, so you can create loft, or de-loft the club. De-loft the club, you make more distance. You make more distance, you make golfers happy. That's how that works. So, we got the club out. Always clean and inspect. Like using the drill because it's just easier. Now this has a shoulder in it And I don't know if you can really, you can't really see it. Let me see if I can get a light on this. See if you can see in there, there's a little bit of a shoulder. And that's when you need the ferrule that has a collar. And that's what the collar goes into, and that helps prevent the shear point. Now at this point, while it's still a little warm, I'm going to put it on the wavy wheel, and I'm going to clean all this area up and make it look a little shinier. So give me a minute here. Now the only reason why I put it on the wavy wheel is just to shine it up and give it kind of a newer kind of look. It's not going to take out any of the dents or the dings, but it'll give it that, hey, I've been worked on, and give it a fresh look. And that's what we're looking for. Now I have a 5-iron shaft, and this is taper tip. So as you've seen in my other videos about frequency matching, if this was parallel tip, I'd work on frequency matching it. But since I don't have another club to compare it to, and it is a taper tip shaft, and how do you know it's taper tipped? Well, I just have this handy dandy gauge, and right up in here is a taper tip, and it's got holes and it's got posts. That fits right in there in that post, right? If it didn't, and here's the 370, it would go in quite a bit because it's a smaller tip. And you see how that went in real easy? It's loose. That goes in there nice and snug. And that's what we want. So we know that one's going to fit. So we find the spine in the shaft, we glue it together, and we're good to go. And what I put on there is this ferrule, and if you notice, it's got the collar on it. See if we can get a little closer. See, there you go. It's got the shell. That shoulder goes on the shoulder that's in that head. Then we cut it to the right length and put on the grip. So back to the irons. So although this is a wedge, but you get the idea. Blade, cavity back. Okay. Now the other parameters to consider on the clubs: offset. All right, offset. That is the difference between this leading edge here and this here. The more offset that it has, the more likely it is to help you minimize a slice or a fade. It gives you that split second to get that club head square into the ball. The ones that don't, that takes that away. So if you're a guy that can control the ball, then you may not need so much. And typically what that means is you would be into more of what they would categorize as a player's iron. Okay, a player's iron. The ones that have a lot of offset would be considered as a beginning or an improvement iron. So if you're having trouble controlling the ball to the fade or to the slice, you might want to consider that. Another issue is the sole width. Okay, the sole width. A lot of game improving irons will have a wider version of this, and typically what that is to prevent you from digging into the turf. It'll bounce you back out and get the ball into the air better. Where this is more of a player's, okay, and that means you're just hitting it at the ball. We are absolutely getting slammed today. So that's what that's for. Okay, so the thinner sole, more players; fatter sole, more beginners, or a guy that takes a lot of turf. Okay, now you can have beginners that strike the ball well, may have a little issue with control. I've had that. It doesn't happen very much, but it does happen. You can have better players that have always grown up with a lot of offset, and that's just how they play. And so you may want to consider that as well. So it's just not if you score low that you're the better player and you need this. You got to find out what your shot tendencies are and marry up the style of the club to you. Now, typically as the scores go lower, you can use a better club because you have better control over your golf game. Sometimes you can do a combo set where the upper end, say the 4, 5, 6, 7, are the cavity backs, or even the player's kind. And then the 9 or the 8-9 pitching wedge, maybe even the gap wedge, are blades. And that's great for a guy that shoots probably in the very low 80s, mid to low 80s, and lower. So you can also look into that and marry up some sets for you there. But what you're looking for is long irons, and preferably for me, longer irons probably don't start any more than the 5-iron anymore, because the lofts are just so strong and the lengths are becoming so long that it gets hard to hit. You know, Trevino used to say, only God could hit a 2-iron. Well, 5-irons are pretty much getting to being about 2-iron like. So, or even 4-irons are getting to be 2-iron like. So you got to be really careful of what you can and cannot hit. You don't want to put an iron in your bag that will never use or you can't hit. It just wastes space in the bag for something that you could use to help you lower your score. So you got to consider that as well. One of the other things for guys that are building clubs is hosel diameter. You saw me compare two, and what you typically have is a .355, which is a taper tip, or a .370, which is parallel. Now, can you make a 355 go into a 370? Absolutely. You can use a shim, and a shim looks like this in some cases. This is a very big shim, but it gives you an idea of what it is. Okay, nice. So, can you put a parallel tip into a taper tip? The standard pat answer is no. Okay, what can you do to make that happen? Well, you can bore this out if you got the skill sets, and then make it receive a taper tip. But now you've just completely altered the club, and you got to be prepared to accept that going forward. So characteristics: offset, blade length, sole width, hosel diameter. This is just a characteristic as the top line, and lofts and lie angles. Okay. Important stuff to know. Get a club that fits your game, not necessarily your attitude. Get one that fits your game. Club makers, if you get one with a shoulder, make sure you're putting one that has a collar on it. One that doesn't, you want to make sure that it fits up there nice and snug. Again, if you like these videos, like the video. And if you want to learn more, subscribe to the channel. We're going to do some more. I have extraordinarily exciting news coming up that I'm not allowed to tell until the end of the month, and we're going to keep posting. But until then, let's see your scores go low.